What is up, everybody? Thank you for joining us this Friday evening. We got a good one for you tonight. We got Mario Duarte from Project Dynamo with us tonight, and we're going to have a great show. So thank you for joining Irregular Republic, episode 10. We're going to be talking about fighting human trafficking and the other threats that we're facing with Project Dynamo. So I'm going to bring Mario up here and let him introduce himself. Mario, what's up, man? How you doing?
Cheers, how you doing, brother? Thank you for having
Great,
me.
man. Yeah, man. How you doing? How's everything going?
I can't complain, man. I go between Houston and Guatemala. Right now, I'm spending a few weeks in Guatemala. Obviously, weather is pretty perfect down here. Can't
Yeah,
complain. So
sounds
it's
sounds
pretty
terrible,
nice.
bro.
Oh
Yeah, man,
man,
sounds terrible.
some people say it's like Gulf weather. All
Yeah,
year round.
yeah. Oh, well, hey, that sounds awesome, man. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, kind of your background, and then what you're doing with Project Dynamo, and then I'll probably jump in and ask you to explain a few things here and there, but then that way we can just kind of go from there and jump into what Project Dynamo is doing and all the great things there, man.
Awesome, appreciate it. Well, Mario Duarte, I'm the president and CEO of Project Dynamo. I've been with Dynamo as a CEO now for about 2 years. May 2024 is when I took over. Uh, it's a great organization. Dynamo was founded when Afghanistan fell back in 2021. I knew the original founders from different from previous lives and everything. And even though I was not officially part of Dynamo right at the beginning, I started helping them right after, at least indirectly, helping them with networking sources, assets here and there. And then I was invited to come in as a member of the board, and quickly thereafter I became the CEO when we changed leadership. Before that, I have had I'm 49 years old. I was born in Guatemala. My parents gave me the chance to go to college in the United States. I went to University of Houston, and while I was there, it was my junior year, my sophomore year. That's when 9/11 happened, and I was already working. I was already at the University of Houston, Collin College of Engineering. I was going for my industrial engineering degree, and I was asked by Dr. Christopher Chung there to start helping with some research programs that the federal government was implementing at some public schools because we were caught with our pants down at 9/11, right? So I
Mhm.
started doing a lot of research on the risk management capabilities of the United States and the federal government. Through that, I started actually doing a lot of research work and training all over the U.S. I was, North Carolina, where your house is, all these different military installations and all their agencies getting some different training. And
Mhm.
then I was part of the red teams that were testing the security posture and the security capabilities of different critical infrastructure assets around the world. This included labs, military bases, airports, ports, even the borders, and some federal facilities. Through that, I actually became a U.S. citizen. We developed this program, and they asked me because of all the work that I had done, and that was pretty unique. They offered me my citizenship, became a citizen, um, finished school, started working a lot of stuff with the intelligence community. We did a lot of stuff both in the U.S. and abroad. Then I started working for the Houston Airport System. I became their risk manager. We implemented a lot of technology down there. We tested a lot of technology at that airport. Right after that, I got my MBA. I joined the army. Then I did the reserves. I went actually to aviation. We started doing a program there. It's called the Down Aircraft Rescue Team. I was actually an Apache mechanic, and we were doing all these things. How we could, go in whenever an aircraft, one of those birds would go down. How to go in, and get all first of the pilots and then the technology, which is pretty advanced, and get it out, make sure that it wasn't captured by enemy hands. I was already drilling with the reserves when I was asked to come to Guatemala to help them with their national security system, which existed only on paper back then. I mean, they had an army and the Ministry of Defense. They had the Ministry of Interior and the police, and they had an intelligence community, rather small. And they had passed in 2008 a law called the law frame, or the law frame for the national security system. And like I said, it only existed on paper. So I came in to help them implement it, and we designed the National Security Council, all the different offices that it had, even the inspector general community in the uh, uh, different security institutions of Guatemala. I did that with them from 2012 all the way to 2015. In 2015, the president of Guatemala, Otto Perez Molina, was deposed, and right after that, about 8 months after, there was a free election, and the guy that won the presidency, Jimmy Morales, asked me to become his chief of intelligence, which is the equivalent in the United States of the CIA and the DNI put together. The position directly reports to the president here. But before I accepted the position, obviously I had to go to Washington, ask for permission because I was a U.S. citizen.
Right.
I had renounced my Guatemalan citizenship, but Guatemala has one of those situations where even if you renounce your citizenship, they never take it away, right? It's basically you
Right.
just ask for your national ID or your passport, and that's it. And all completely authorized by the USG, I became the chief of intelligence of Guatemala for years with Bert Hernandez, who is now my business partner, who was the chief of station here in Guatemala. We broke records, chasing narcos, capturing coca loads all over the place. We still actually, during those 4 years, and we still have the record of the most cocaine interdictions in the entire Western Hemisphere ever.
It's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's
We
legit.
did all sorts of crazy stuff with him.
Yeah.
Again, I found myself back then in a very interesting place, right? Because
Yeah.
as a U.S. citizen, former military, actually still for the first year of there, I was still in active reserves. I had a lot of access, right, and clearance
Yeah.
to see a lot of intelligence that the rest of the Guatemalans didn't have, especially
Right.
because a lot of that was uh, what we call no foreign, right, not for foreigners, or information
Right.
for foreigners. And so a lot of people assumed that we had acquired a lot of technology, and it wasn't true. It was just the fact that we had a very good relationship with the intelligence community and Southcom and the Department of Defense back then. And we did a lot of good stuff. And they also gave Guatemala a lot, or we gave Guatemala a lot of capabilities as well, a lot of training. We couldn't give them much of in the sense of equipment, but again, training, leadership, coordination, how to do things with whatever they had, and obviously we would share information or lead a lot of the operations with them, right? Which was actually fun in the sense that I was supposed to be in the office and I was down there with the guys doing
Right.
shit we're supposed to do, right?
Right. Right.
Uh, Besides, kicking shit out of the narcos, we did a lot of stuff as well that had to do with illegal immigration. I was at the border when the first caravan broke through our border with Honduras. I was actually with Sarah
Hmm.
Carter, who is today the drug czar, the director of the Office of National Drug Policy, or some ONDCP.
Yeah.
And literally, they almost ran over us. We were going to be trampled by all that mass of people.
Dang.
Shortly right thereafter, we actually also found the um, the most advanced cocaine processing plant outside of Colombia, down deep down in the ravines and the jungles of Guatemala. Pretty amazing stuff. Had a very low heat signal. It was just our people going through the jungle, whatever, like trying to find different things, and we came across that
Yeah.
stuff.
Dang.
We did some missions also on the side of human trafficking. Again,
Mm-hmm.
pretty nasty. And I guess when we get into that, I'll tell you a story of how I really became involved in that counter human trafficking and why it is, in my opinion, so important for
Mm-hmm.
not only for the United States but for any country. You know, it's pretty devastating what we're allowing to happen, and at some point we have to stop. And the government not always has the capability to do it. So I think the more people, the more Americans that get into it and help, the quicker we're going to be able to get rid of that terrible thing. You know.
Right. And talk, tell about how like how important having guys like you that understand the U.S. side, and then
Mhm.
became citizens and like worked with us, deployed with us, did all the things, but then you bring that back to to Latin America, and you bring these you help train the guys, and you help fight back against some of this stuff, the narco terrorism and all the other things that are happening, and how important that is for just one, I mean, just U.S. interests as well, but also just to help pull these countries out of some of this turmoil that has been placed on them by the cartels and by some of these other things that are happening down there.
Absolutely. No, dude, and I guess, and it's a very good question, especially right now when in the US we're having these discussions about legislators not having to dual nationalities, right? I think
Right.
that when you are serving, the right thing to do is actually to be loyal to your, in this case, in my case, to your adoptive country, which is now my country, and just know that that's where your allegiance is, and you have to demonstrate it and show it. And I mean, now in my case, in between what I did with the with the IC, what I did with the army, what I did with the federal government when it came to all the different things we did with the red teams in homeland,
Mm-hmm.
I probably went through, I would say, eight polygraph tests and background checks. Out of
Mm-hmm.
those, two were lifestyle polygraphs, which
Dang, dude.
are pretty nasty and traumatic.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that's one of the best ways to prove that your
Mm-hmm.
heart and your determination is with the United States. Now, when you have all these capabilities, you also have the opportunity, or better said, you have a very unique set of skills that you can actually apply, especially in our footprint outside of the United States. And I think that type of vision should be almost like a program where you have people with dual nationalities that can be used to extend our outreach, extend our capabilities, but also help in a way to bring in closer our willing partners, right?
Yep.
Uh, uh,
Absolutely.
for instance, in my basic training class, there was actually, if I'm not mistaken, he was the first Sikh that was allowed to join and have his full beard and his turban, right? And I think those
Mm-hmm.
type of things are very good for us, especially when we deploy and we all these different missions. But again, it's just extra skill sets that make us more effective, even efficient. Because think about it, if you have a guy, a native, that knows the language, knows the land, knows all this stuff, you actually save resources, money, time, instead of having language training or having someone to having have to spend, I don't know, weeks, months learning the terrain, when
Mm-hmm.
you can actually do that almost on a switch on, switch off, you know, type of
Right.
program.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you're a country like America, I mean, America's it's a melting pot. It's a there's you can't have like this weird, like some of these people are pushing this weird form of like this nationalism that where it's like America only. Like that's
Mhm.
we're too built into the international system.
Mhm.
Now, like I'm okay with pushing back against globalism, right? That yeah, we don't need to allow like globalists or the rest of the world to push us around and tell
Yeah,
us
we
what
don't
to
need a
do.
world government.
No, we don't need a world government, but we need to be. So I'm okay with the U.S. though being in charge of the world. Like telling the world what's right and what's not. Because I mean, the truth of the matter is that the U.S. government and again, in all of its flaws as well. But the United States of America as a country is the freest and most philanthropic nation that has ever existed on the earth. And there's no arguing that. And so, I believe that is a force for good. And again, it's full of people, and people do like make mistakes. People have done bad things. We're obviously not perfect. There's things that we can improve upon. But all in all, we are a benevolent nation. And so I would much rather a benevolent nation be kind of the one ushering the world in certain directions than a non-benevolent nation, say something like the CCP, who is doing terrible things to people, or Russia, or some of these other nations that would prefer authoritarianism. And instead, it's one of those things that it's important to have these conversations, because you've seen so much more of the world than most people ever will see, right? Or most people will even get a glimpse of. And so, that's really, it's a great point. And I think it's awesome that you're on here and talking about it. And so, tell us, okay, so you did the Army, you did the intelligence stuff. Let's talk about when you started, or when Project Dynamo started and you got involved with it, and then what kind of brought you into the human trafficking and anti-human trafficking, and how that all began for you.
Absolutely. So in between me finishing being the chief in Guatemala till joining Project Dynamo, there was 4 years in between, more or less. During those 4 years, actually, I stood up my private my own company, right? It's kind of like, it's a business intelligence and strategic advisory firm. So we do everything from lobbying, specific advisory for CEOs, for big projects like mines, hydroelectric plants, ports. We help them with, assessing the situation in countries, specifically in the Western Hemisphere and the Caribbean. But also we provide information to American companies that want to understand more of what's going on when it comes to the US and their posture with Latin America, right? So I started doing that. I also was a lobbyist with a lobbying firm. Robert Strick he's my mentor in lobbying, great guy. And we were actually doing a specific project for someone in Africa. We were together in Florida when the whole thing at Abiegate happened, right? So I got a couple of calls from Brad Cohen, who is the chairman of Project Dynamo, and in the background was Mike Deinsman, who you had on the show a few weeks ago. And we were talking about sending people. They were talking about sending people, aircraft. Actually, Robert Strick, we sent an aircraft as well to Dynamo, to Afghanistan, to pull people out and help our brothers over there and all the people that we had left behind, which, honestly, I still can't believe, or I hope that, Secretary Hexet and the DOJ do a proper investigation in that, because the way we left our fellow Americans back there, I'm not talking about the military or the diplomatic corps or anything like that, but the people, especially people like me, dual nationals that were left behind. We know of people that lost their families, people that dual nationals that found their husbands or wives and their entire families were massacred in front of them. That's something that we still owe to them, and someone has to pay for it, for sure. Anyway, I started doing all that stuff. On and off, I was helping Dynamo with their missions they had throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. And then I was called in, and I came in. They asked me to be the CEO. Just I wanted to make Dynamo more lean, but also faster when it came to responding. And it went from a very militaristic structure to a more intelligence-based organization, simply because a lot of the people that I brought in are from the IC community, but also people from like the special forces, Green Berets, that also were able to transition into the intelligence world. Mike did a lot of that stuff. Stan Bunner, who is actually one of our founders as well, he also was in the army. He was also human intelligence, and then he went into the Navy. And then I brought in Bert Hernandez, who I already mentioned, who was from the agency, and then Ron Johnson also, who was in our advisory board for a year more or less until he was asked by President Trump to become the U.S. ambassador to Mexico. And as you have seen, he's kicking ass down there,
Yeah,
and he's doing
absolutely.
awesome work. What needs to be done, and think about it.
Hmm.
You know, besides being a diplomat, he was an officer, a gentleman, but he's a knuckle dragger, man. I mean, he's a shooter, and he
Yep.
knows what the dark world is, and that he brought all that stuff into Mexico, and that's what we needed to do.
Hmm.
Anyway, so that's how Dynamo became, like I said, way more efficient when it came to signals capturing where we're needed. We started seeing a lot of people asking for our advice on risk around the world, right? And that's one of the
Hmm.
reasons why I started or we implemented these sort of open letters to the public where we give them, not to be dramatic or trying to put fear in people, but just for people to be aware of what's going on in the world, right? We
Right. Right.
we posted this open letter when we started noticing that there was an uptick in a lot of anti-Semitism and
Hmm.
anti-Christianism in the U.S., but from specific, very weird groups that really, when you do risk analysis, you have to take into account several things: intention, capability, will, and determination. Those four things really, at the end, determine if someone is going to do something or not. And these guys
Hmm.
met at least three of those. And we posted that in October of 2023. No, when was it? Can't remember right now. No, October 2024. And then in January 2025, we start getting all these attacks on the Jewish community in the US, shootings of the
Hmm.
churches, and then
Yep.
those different attacks around the United States and other places around the world, right? So again, it's just the way I wanted Dynamo to function, and the way it's working now. Again, that didn't take away anything from the operational capabilities and experience that we already had. We just improved on that. Again, make
Hmm.
it more lean, make sure that everything goes directly to the mission. We are 100% donor funded organization, and that's one of the reasons why, because one of the reasons why we're so nimble and so fast to react. Give you an
Yeah.
example. During the Hurricane Melissa last year,
Hmm.
we literally landed with the tail of the hurricane still on top of Jamaica. And we landed, first off, our flight, it was a small Piper aircraft. It was the first humanitarian private flight to fly over Cuba in, I think, like they said, like 20 years or something like that. We got the
Hmm.
permission to do it. We flew over Cuba. It was awesome. Talking to those guys on the radio. Funny, the pilot was like, I can't understand this guy. I know, like, let me try to talk to him. And it's like, whatever, our calls, our tail number is like Cuba, right? It's like, uh, zero zero Americano, Americano. I'm like, dude, you sound like you're from, on a Radio Havana, something like that. Anyway, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
So, but
That's awesome.
when we landed in Montego Bay and taxied to the area where we saw there was activity, all these people, all these guys and ladies from the airport authority came out. I was like, what the hell are you doing here? It's like, we came here to help, but why? That's what we do, right? Uh, and we brought with us several solar chargers and whatever, and these small units that could provide electricity for them rather quickly. Though some of
Hmm.
them had been there already 10 days or almost a
Yeah.
week without electricity, and they had not talked to home or anything during that time. So as soon as we landed, we set up all these capabilities, and suddenly we had about 150 people around us, and in a way, we took over the airport. We were the first ones in there. Started helping them. We gave them some juice that they needed for their equipment. We moved out. We already had vehicles ready for us. We went and started collecting Americans, started pulling them into the airplane and flying out. And then we noticed that, okay, if we're gonna be flying in so many times, let's start bringing in some help, right? Let's, medicine,
Hmm.
equipment, generators, all sorts of stuff.
Right.
At the end, when the mission finished, we had about probably 100,000 pounds of aid that we delivered to Jamaica.
Dang.
And yeah, so anyway, so that's kind of like the whole thing with responding quickly and
Yeah.
just being able to do stuff for other people, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's being flexible and lean, like you said, like
Oh,
it's some, I
sorry.
mean,
Yeah, sorry. That's where I was going with being lean
yeah,
and
yeah.
flexible. So after a couple of days, the big organizations landed, right?
Hmm.
I'm going to avoid naming names, just I don't want to get in hot water, but
I
at
hear
a
you.
point they were like, "Hey guys, come here. You need to do this. You need to report with us. Blah blah blah. We need to put you on a schedule." I'm like, "Why? Who are you, first of all?" "Oh, blah blah blah, and this and that, and we
Hmm.
have the State Department program, so we're lead in country." Huh? Really? Watch me. See if you're a lead. And we were already working with the local authorities. We had
Right.
police working with us. The army unfortunately had to stop working with us and only started working with these guys. But by the time they were able to start moving aid out, we were already on the way to the other side of the island. We were the first ones in the western areas, and
Mhm.
and pretty much the only ones to be there for almost a month. um,
Yeah.
we rescued about 15 newborns.
That's awesome.
We serviced a total probably of 500 Jamaicans that had been injured during the hurricane.
Dang.
Great mission. We pulled out something like, let me see, remember, like 150 Americans, plus we helped another 500 that were there, but they decided to go to Kingston, and they were able to take commercial flights out there. Again,
Dang.
being able to do that is because we don't take grants
Right.
for our operations. That means there is no red tape for us. We can land wherever we want as long as we get permits from the country we're going to. And again, we're a humanitarian organization, so we get to do all of these different cool missions and go to all these different, beautiful places, dangerous places. But
Right.
at the end, it's just to help our fellow Americans, right?
Right. No, that's awesome, man. I want to go back to something and just so we can explain it to everybody. Talk about how like important the ambassador position is. So a lot of people don't understand that the ambassador is the highest ranking U.S. official in that country, and a lot of
So
people think that it's they don't understand that dynamic. So kind of explain that real quick and how important the ambassador, especially in like countries like Mexico. There's some posts that are like the foo posts that are like just the political
on
appointees, and then you
vacation.
have the real ones. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. No, totally. Yeah. No, so the ambassador, the US ambassador in any country, is the official representative of the president of the United States. So it's not necessarily the US government, but the president of the United States. So whatever the ambassador communicates is the voice of the president, right? Even though they have a specific chain of command that goes through the Secretary of State and to Trump, but there are certain ambassadors that are actually they become close to the president, especially in countries that are of special interest to the United States. In this case, Mexico, obviously, with what's going on with the cartels and all those things. Uh, I'm 100% sure that Ron has direct access to POTUS. But so, same thing for ambassadors in other countries that are of importance, right? Again, it's a role that it can be both very diplomatic, especially with countries that are very square along those lines. Think about Europe; they're very square when it comes to diplomatic process and protocols. But then you have other places that are more political in a way and of more political interest to the president of the United States, right? Places where if you keep the let's say the diplomatic ways, it would take you a lot of time to be successful or achieve what you're supposed to achieve. Then the solution to that is the president decides to send an ambassador that can be both a career ambassador or a political appointee, but still they go through the process of being confirmed by the Senate. But again, it's really about the mission that they are supposed to accomplish there. And when
Hmm.
it's a political one, they get a little bit more support directly from the president, so they can be a little bit more aggressive in certain things that are of interest to the United States, and also to be more effective in bringing things like assistance or bringing in businesses for investments or vis-a-vis finding ways that both countries can benefit and
Hmm.
be good allies, right? So it's very there are very important roles. We have had, you know, nasty ambassadors throughout the world, people that have looked after their own interests, but wars. And I think that it really happened specifically during the Obama and the Biden administration that you had a lot of these diplomatic, and I'm going to use this specific word, these diplomatic assholes that were there not to look after the interests of the United States, but
Hmm.
they were there to push their own ideological agenda that was very similar and parallel to the global agenda of the UN and all other multilateral bodies.
Right. Right. And that's another thing people don't understand. I mean, when you're an ambassador in another country and then you're raising, certain flags that shouldn't necessarily be raised with the American flag on an embassy in a foreign country,
That's that. Interesting you mentioned that because that happened here in Guatemala specifically, and
Hmm.
and and this is gonna get some people pissed, but they raised actually the rainbow flag right under
Hmm.
at a point right under our stars and stripes. But also
Hmm.
at another time, they brought down the Marine ensign and pulled up that freaking flag. Believe me, got
Yep.
a lot of jarheads really pissed down here in Guatemala when they did that. And
I
again,
bet. I
it's
bet.
an insult in a way. And it's just again, it was not the official posture or policy of the United States. It was simply the ideology of that specific ambassador or the
Right.
team at the embassy at that time. And it was not the only embassy where it happened. But the thing is
Right.
that why don't they do it in Saudi Arabia or in India or
They
in
never.
Pakistan? They come and do it with this in these countries where the ambassadors get to be a little bit more aggressive, but at the same time where the host countries usually allow those things to happen.
Right. I mean, that's a great point. Like, why didn't they go do that in one of these other countries that you just mentioned? And it's because it would never fly there. It would not be okay, and they know that. And so it's just one of those things. They're playing political games with a
Mhm.
position that's not supposed to be used in that sort of political way. And so,
No,
yeah, I
and
mean, I
and the ambassadors can push back, right? They could say, well, it's American soil. Yeah, right, it's American soil, but I don't see the same damn flag flying outside State Department at Foggy Bottom. I don't see
right,
that flying at Southcom or in front of the White House. So why are you doing it here? Right?
right,
So it's they
no,
could push back with that stuff, but again, it's
right,
it's how the host country did it. And back then, I was helping Guatemala as their intel chief, and we did complain. President Morales did complain about it, and
yeah,
surprisingly, most of the assistance came from Southcom, from the Marines there. That they saw it as an insult as well.
yeah. No, I mean, I get it for real. Hey guys, real quick, thank you all again for joining. Please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Trying to build that over there. If you're on X, please repost and like and all the things on there. Try to get this shared a little bit more. Again, if you're just joining us, I have the CEO of Project Dynamo, Mario Duarte, with me, and he's going through some of the awesome things that Project Dynamo is doing, some of the anti-human trafficking things, and then we're going to get into some other really cool stuff too. So thank y'all for joining us. And so Mario, just tell us. Okay, so we went through, kind of what brought you into Project Dynamo, and then the last. Well, that was the first mission you did when you went down into Jamaica.
No, actually,
Or
the
the first.
first mission I did was to Israel. We
Oh,
were
okay.
asked,
Okay.
yeah. So Project Dynamo responded to right after October 7th in 2023, right? We pulled
Right.
out 400 Americans, all this thing. Governor DeSantis helped us with an aircraft and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year, again, when the rockets started flying and hitting Israel, we flew in again, and we were asked to help with some Americans and allies that were in the Judea area and Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, kind of the thing is that most of us have seen combat. We've been in very nasty places, so we know how
Mm-hmm.
to handle ourselves in those areas. But also because we're a humanitarian organization, we
Right.
we get a pass in a lot of these different places, especially with a lot of restrictions. And we have a very good relationship with Israel as well, both at the personal level and as an organization, because we've been there and we know a lot of business people down there, but also people from the government. And we just we went in there. That was my first mission. We spent there about 3 weeks, pulled about 20 people that time. Then right after that, we had what was it? North Carolina. When
Mm-hmm.
when the
Oh yeah.
hurricane destroyed that.
Hurricane. Yeah. When the floods from all the dams
Yep,
breaking.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly that. Then right after that, we went to Florida. It's just, there was two hurricanes back to back. Went into Florida. Then a couple months later, Texas. Actually, no. Later on, that was last year. Again, we went again into Israel. We were there
Mm-hmm.
again probably 4 days right before the 12th day war
Right.
started. We were in there throughout the entire 12th day and another week or so, pulling again people. That time we pulled again like 300 and something people. This time, instead of an aircraft, unfortunately, we had to drive across both Jordan and Egypt, which again, it's accelerating for people like us, right? It's awesome. It's fun. You
Yeah.
get to
Yeah. Yeah.
do all these things. Probably they
Right.
are not shooting at you, but always with the risk of a rocket landing on
Right.
your head. So, but again, we had our intelligence processes, and we travel with a lot of capabilities, obviously making sure that we can remain nimble and mobile, but
Mm-hmm.
cell phones and tablets and everything, and we have all these alert systems, making sure that also along the routes we're planning where we could go into a bunker if needed. We had to do it
Right.
3 times throughout the days we were there. um, I was actually, they pointed one of, I remember the Uzis, but the Egyptian version. I
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
was, so we walked into Egypt, and the guys there, we already had a relationship with the Egyptians, right? And they're very nice people. They're awesome, by the way. And we one
Mm-hmm.
of well, just listen to this story. So we're there, and one of these guys was new, and it's like, why have you so many stamps here? Why are you coming back and forth? What are you doing? And are you official? You look official. I think you're official. I'm like, no, we're not official. We are a humanitarian organization in the United States. All these people are Americans, and we need to get
Mm-hmm.
them out. What's going on in there, blah blah blah. All these things start. Something happened. Some lady dropped something, and someone started yelling next to me with my group. This guy gets nervous, and suddenly the next thing I know, this guy is pointing his submachine gun and puts it on my chest, and I'm like, I'm about to put that stuff up your nose if you don't take it away. The thing is that
Yep.
he was just nervous, and then
Right.
he was apologizing, and he even asked to be our private escort for the rest of the trips. And he became a very good friend of ours. We spent at the end like 4 days with him, but on and off, the hours that we were across and whatever. But the type of stuff that happens, and
Mm-hmm.
surprisingly, a lot in every single country we've been to, I have never encountered any type of official animosity towards the United States or Americans. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The simple
Right.
fact is that we have been blessed and lucky not to encounter those type of people, and they've been very helpful. I always thank and try to leave them something, like one of our shirts or our patches or
Right.
whatever, some sort of memento from us, so they can remember us, and they are very appreciative of it. And they're our friends on Instagram or on Facebook or on TikTok. And so again, it's this type of network that we have learned to develop, right? And you guys, Green Berets, are exactly that. You guys are soldier
Yep.
diplomats, and that's the type of skills we look after for the volunteers that work with us. And again, it's both rewarding and it's exciting, and it also in a way helps veterans to feel that they can still do a lot for their countrymen, and do
Yeah.
stuff that it's obviously fun and that they are very good at. And so we take everyone that wants to help when they have time, and if they have availability for volunteer work, of course, the more the merrier.
I might have to hit you up, man. I might. Let's see. Get
No,
plugged
hell
in
yeah,
here.
man, come along. It's gonna be fun.
No, but it's kind of, I feel the same way. I mean, we went all over. I mean, obviously, like when I was in Iraq or when I was in Afghanistan, freedom of movement is a little different there.
Mhm.
We rolled heavy there. We're not really rolling. Of course, we kind of rolled heavy when we were in Africa as well, but at the same time, some of the like with the little areas that we were living in Africa, we would go into, I mean, we were armed, but we weren't necessarily armed with long guns. We would have pistols on us, but we would go into town all the time, and we're hanging out with the populace. We're going into stores. We're doing all the things. I was I picked up French decently. I can't speak it anymore, but when I was there, I could, and as long as I didn't throw too much Hausa in there, I could get along pretty well, and so, it is fun. You get out and you realize like there's this whole other world out there, and for the most part, like they don't see a ton of Americans. So when they do, they're like, "Oh, this is actually kind of cool." Like, or they don't see it. It's fun to interact with definitely different cultures too that you wouldn't necessarily ever think that you would interact with. So, I mean, I don't know how much time you've spent in
Something
Africa, but
I did some time there.
some,
It's in
yeah,
the Djibouti area.
yeah,
Again, I cannot talk much about it, but it's one of those places that you wish could see the light and invest more
yeah,
in their own development. But my eyes right
yeah,
now, all that damn place is hell, man. I mean, it's
yeah. It's
nasty.
just, yeah, it's hard.
And
I don't know what the solution is, but I get what you're saying.
uh, I honestly, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's one of those things that better not to get too deep into because you can hurt a few a few
Yeah,
weak hearts
yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
But yeah.
We were in Niger. We were in Niger, and we actually my team
Mhm.
was one of the teams that trained that, or well, we trained the Bicos, which was led by the guy that ended up later. I mean, this is years after we had left and weren't there anymore, but it was a guy that ended up like, I don't know if he was successful, but either tried a coup or was part of the
Mhm.
coup that happened there not too long ago.
Okay.
I mean, that happens all the time over there. Like one of our interpreters that was one of the interpreters that we had been in, like he had to flee for a while, and then he was able to come back a few years later because he was part of a coup like before that. So it's just like one of those things. It's just like a
Mhm.
normal thing over there, but it's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, Africa has always been very volatile, and pretty much most of the Western Hemisphere was like that, especially in the 80s and early 90s. And thank God we're not going that direction, even though it's pretty nasty down here.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, yeah. I think some of the moves in South America, I think we're making some good steps. I think there's. I mean, you obviously have a better picture of everything down there. So, but I do think that obviously what needed to happen with Venezuela, and
Mhm.
has happened, and hopefully that I don't know that it's the 100% fix, right? But I think it's a step at least. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
see what kind of happens from there, and and then we'll kind of see what happens with Cuba. Got some things
I
cooking,
think
I think.
I honestly think that President Trump, Secretary Rubio, and Assistant Secretary Landau have a very good vision of what needs to happen. I think those three understand that the entire thing of nation building is not necessarily the right thing to do. And I don't think
Right?
we should get involved in that ever again as
Nope.
Americans.
Nope.
However, we are good at enticing people into doing the right thing for their own, right? And I think that's what
Yeah.
we're doing with Delcy Rodriguez, that she needs to see the light that, hey, we got you by the hair, so might as well start doing what's right for your people. And it's
Right.
just a matter of kind of, who was it that said it? Was it Teddy Roosevelt or Monroe, the stick and carrot foreign policy approach? Hey, there is this, but I have this big stick as well, right?
Oh yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like
so
it's yeah. Here's the honey. Here's the honey, but I'd rather you take the honey, but also if you don't, here's the big stick.
exactly.
And honestly, that foreign policy, it's not 100% effective all the time. Obviously, there's going to be some intricacies, some nuance that you have to deal with, but it's better than the alternative, which is either nation building, which obviously doesn't work. Like, not every country wants to be exactly like the United States. They want maybe they want to do some things like the way that we do, which is fine, right? Like let's foster those relationships, and but then kind of like you don't have to make everyone exactly the same. In from that
And
standpoint, that we
that's
were like we're going to give
and I think
Afghanistan
that's the
democracy,
arrogance. And that's the
right?
arrogance. Honestly, by the arrogance of the Democrats when it comes to foreign policy,
Right.
that they try to be more diplomatic with host countries or ally nations, but at the same time they try to push down their throat all these bullshit, nation destroying policies like wokeism, leftist ideologies, all these different crap that at
Mm-hmm.
the end, they start eroding countries, especially conservative countries, because what they do is they empower this small elite group of mediocre people at best that are not successful in business. They're not even real smart. They just get pumped up by all this structure of embassies in different countries, and they get all these different accolades, invented accolades, by the way, not because they wrote the best paper or they invented something. It's just because they see an asset, they see an ideologue, a guy that is someone who is ruthless, willing to sell their mother for their ideology, and that's the
Yep.
people they start utilizing in these countries and make them leaders, right? So again,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's one of the things that we have to dismantle. And definitely the US needs to stop doing that, because we have actually fostered some of the worst people that end up becoming enemies of the United States. And believe it or not, some of these people from different countries, including from Guatemala, are hiding now in the US, are real anti-American people. We have
Mm-hmm.
given green cards to some of them. Some of them had relationships and even helped and aided and abetted narcos. But worst of all, also were part of the entire network that brought a lot of the illegal immigration during the first Trump administration. I'm talking about deep state that was inside State Department that worked with these people, and
Right.
then
Right.
through the government, through the administration of President Biden. Again,
Right.
so we have created our own enemies. So
Mm-hmm.
they called it, local implementing partners. That's what State Department calls them. Oh, these are the best. These are the most trusted sources. And suddenly they are the ones right now, you know, calling the United States the empire, the evil empire, the big prostitute, the dark Rome, all these different things, right? And the worst part was that we created our own enemies that can really damage us at some point, specifically because they have very deep networks and sometimes with a lot of money that comes from the UN, meaning also from us, but
Right.
from NGOs like Soros and other institutions like that.
Yeah. So you made a great point about like what Trump, and then more importantly what Secretary Rubio and the plan that they kind of have for South America, Central
Mhm.
America, and how they're bringing that into the fold. Kind of explain that for everybody, and you understand all the dynamics down there a lot better. Explain that for the regular American who doesn't really understand the culture, that doesn't understand the different governments, and then how they're trying to get them to work together. Just like, again, we don't have to go like all the way deep dive, but just like a broad stroke of like this is what they're trying to do, and
Okay.
how Venezuela fits into that, and Cuba and all that.
So first off, let me say something really, really quickly and in short. I mean, people that saw what or lived what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan understand that nation building doesn't work. Unlike what you said, Chase, not everyone wants to be like the United States. But more important, our way of life doesn't necessarily fit in every other place that we go to or where we operate or we have had operations in, right? It's
Right.
just we're not compatible in that way, especially places like Iraq and Afghanistan. There was no reason for us to try to force our way of lives upon them.
Mm.
And it's kind of like the same with Venezuela. And again, that's why I think Secretary Rubio, Assistant Secretary Landau, and obviously under the leadership of Trump, they know that they don't want to nation build Venezuela. Venezuela is a very, very particular country. You have to remember that back in the 90s, before Chavez took over, and that's another example of how we train our own enemies.
Right.
Venezuela was a first world country. I mean,
Hmm.
top of the world in medical tourism, plastic surgery, a booming economy. They had like a very big TV and movie production industry already, novellas for the entire world, tourism, everything. They had everything. Gold coming out, oil coming out,
Yep.
everything was coming out of Venezuela. And suddenly, what happens? Like that saying that it's pretty cliche. Good times brew bad people kind of thing.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
exactly what happened. Opulence and all these things started creating this small group of resentful people that couldn't find their own path into prosperity because they are, again, either mediocre, dumb, or lazy, but they
Hmm.
needed help from someone. And, obviously, Chavez, being a military guy, actually, he was trained by us, the US, here in Guatemala, of all places. That's where he
Of course.
learned. No, true. That's where he
Hmm.
learned the entire thing of civil affairs and hearts and minds and all these different things that we use when it comes to getting close to society, right?
Hmm.
He brought it to Venezuela, implemented it, became the leader he became, took over Venezuela, destroyed it completely. And what happened is that, and it's pretty, it's a very standardized book that the left follows. I'm not saying a book per se, but it's a recipe. So they create this sort of color revolution, right? The oppressed people, the poor people that never had a chance to excel because of the oligarchs or because of the of cannibalistic capitalism in the country, whatever floats in the country where they start this, right?
Hmm.
And then you create all these new elite of, like I said, mediocre people at best that have been pumped up by the international community. They become leaders. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They're bad at what they do. They start destroying institutions because they put
Yep.
very stupid people in charge. And then what they do to keep control of the people, they start handing them money and
Hmm.
giving them everything they need to live. So they basically create this new strata of people that are lazy. They don't have to go to work. They can stay at home, taking sun, out in the porch smoking, playing video games, whatever. They are just out there doing nothing, but they get a monthly paycheck, a
Hmm.
monthly card to go to the market and the store to get their supplies for the week or the month. So what you get is a lot of voters that want to vote for you forever because basically they will not have to work again. Again, you're
Yep.
talking about people that get accustomed to being lazy. They don't have goals in life other than doing whatever, just being lazy at
Hmm.
home. And think about it, they almost implemented that in the United States. And I know I'm going to ruffle some feathers here, but that's what they were trying to do with the whole stay at home thing with the paychecks during COVID.
COVID.
And it
Yep.
happened because a lot of people were getting more money than what they were making at I don't know, at a restaurant or at a bar, waiting
Hmm.
tables or washing dishes or whatever. So they started creating this level of people in the United States that get to stay home, be lazy, and not achieve anything. But definitely, that's 100%, vote for the future. And
Right.
who was it? It was Democrats. So again, they created that in Venezuela. So you need to have a lot of local understanding of the culture, the nuisance, like you said, of how it is that you can handle the politics in there. And that's what they are doing. And I think they need to move rather quickly to the next step, which is going to be how you start empowering this new political opportunity that you have with people willing to not depend on the government, but create their own path. And I
Hmm.
think the United States has an opportunity to all of those things, allow them to seek money for the campaign, because the risk right now is that all the money, all the resources are being held by the Venezuelan government, right? By Delcy Rodriguez and her people. So there is
Right.
no actual real money for the other parties to launch a campaign, to pay for whatever it is that they need to pay. All of their TV stations, cable TV, whatever, is controlled by the government. So it's
Right.
I mean, you're talking about something that is, how are you going to defeat the government or the official party when they hold the money and all communication capabilities, right? So
Yep.
that's, I think, where that would be a good exercise for the U.S. How to create a healthy political environment for free elections to happen, and of course, definitely, we need to be sure that there are going to be free and fair elections, not what we had in the US or a lot of other countries around the
Right.
world. Again, who is the one who, I mean, it's surprisingly, it's always a leftist party that wins
Right.
when there are, weird elections happening.
Weird elections. Yep. Yeah, I mean, and that's again, that, yeah, you just said it's not just that's not just tilted in the United States, or it's kind of all over the world. We've seen this
Mhm.
happen numerous times,
Yep.
and in Europe as well. So um, that's always been a focus of my account, is to point out, and that's why I don't say that's why I don't call people, like, I don't call Democrats liberals, and or at least I try not to. I try to catch myself, because I call them leftists or I call them Democrats or whatever, because there's a difference, right? And if you really look at history, and if you look at what words actually mean, classic liberalism is
Mhm.
actually the antithesis to what Marxism or to collectivism and all, and any of these leftist
Yep.
ideologies actually are,
Well,
and
think
a lot of
about it.
people
I
don't
mean,
realize that.
Samuel Alinsky is the name of this guy, and I think there is another guy. He was a former KGB officer that tracked it and came to the U.S. and taught a lot of
Yuri
of
Yuri Bezmenov.
huh?
Yuri,
Yes,
yeah, Yuri
exactly.
Bezmenov.
Bezmenov,
Yep, yeah,
Bezmenov, and this other guy that I just mentioned. So they had it's pretty much the same, the will of a nation from within, right? How you erode their
yep,
nationalism, how you erode their love for country, and it's the same, right? You start destroying society from within, and that's the dangerous part, right? Because when the world is volatile, when there are so many things going on, it's easy to create this type of color revolutions in these different countries. But again, the left has also become very good at, and just to your point about, they are not liberals, they are leftist, socialist, communists. That's
yep,
what they are. But they're very good at double speak, double thought, and hiding their true intentions into these type of, I will say this just to cover myself, right?
yep,
Like the whole thing
yep,
of inclusion, it was not really let's include everyone. It was really let's benefit this group of people because they are going to serve our political purpose. It's not like
exactly.
let's make everyone equally capable of achieving something. No, it was let's cut the line for these guys here. And by the way, guys, you're going to vote for me now and forever.
Yes, I mean, it's a great point. Yeah, inclusion. That's otherwise, if it was really about inclusion, then they would actually include everyone, and they would be fine. They would be tolerant of, people on the right or people that have different viewpoints than they do, but they don't actually have that. It's the
Mhm.
opposite. They exclude you for that, or they call you a name, or they tell you that you're this or that because of the views that you have, which is not inclusion. So the left has, I mean, for over 100 years now, and you can go back through Europe, you can go into Central America, South America, and look at the different where it's traveled there as well, and you can see that it's always the same. It's always the same playbook. It just tweaks a little bit based on the culture, based on the people. I mean, Italian fascism was a little bit different than German fascism. The communists in different parts of Europe were different than the communists in Soviet Russia. It's just people try to have this black and white description of what is a fascist or what is a communist or what is this, and that's why I also try to point out, like, they're just collectivists, guys. Like, that's where you need to really just call them. They're just collectivists.
Well,
Collectivism really puts the collective above the individual, and if you
mhm.
look at it that way, then it becomes real clear, right? If the collective good is more important than individual rights, then whatever ideology you have, that's what we're talking about is a leftist ideology, right? And everyone's like,
Exactly.
there's no right and left, and there is, right? And
No,
if you actually look at the spectrum the right way, there is, right? So yeah, I mean,
and and in a way, think about it. Even their own ideology doesn't sustain logic, and it's contradictory in their own design, right? In its own
right.
design, because let's say the collective good, but it's better for everyone. So let's
Yep.
think about the whole instead of the individual. But then they try to focus on the individual to push down the throat their entire, LGBT plus 30
Yeah.
colors and flavors of Baskin Robbins, right? So again, they have all these dichotomies in their own ideology, which is what makes
Yep.
them very dangerous. But again, it's always the same. And you know what? It's something that I am always surprised how naive, especially Americans are, or I'm going to put it this way, white leftist Americans are
Right.
when it comes to the left and the Democrats making friends with enemies of our way of life. Why is it that leftists are so hell bent on defending Palestine, whatever that is,
Yep.
or now defending even Iran?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you
that
see all
it
these marches,
frustrates me.
queers for Palestine, queers for
Yeah.
Iran. I'm like, for God's sake, go to Iran and and try to have a queer parade over there, or even in Gaza. Let's see how it goes.
Yep.
But they are siding
Yeah.
with those people. And now the biggest surprise, which we will talk a little bit more about this in a little bit, but now they're even siding with the narcos and the gangbangers.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what
It,
that's what leftist America is today. They are siding with the damn narcos. And the other day I had to post this, and I unfortunately I had to delete my post, but this guy was like, how come we doing this? And these guys, they just lack opportunity, blah blah blah. I'm like, asshole, look at what these guys you're defending do. And I
yep.
posted about 4 videos of how they decapitate bodies. They have children and babies eaten alive by pit bulls in front of their parents and things like that, right? And that's the reality of these monsters here, and that's the
Yeah.
people they are defending. And it is because there is an alliance now between narcos and left, and what I call the unholy alliance is the narcos, the left, terrorists, and China. And that's what
Yeah.
we're facing in the Western Hemisphere. And these are the people that these dumbasses are defending. And excuse the French, but I get frustrated because I get to see
Yeah.
the ugly side here in Guatemala. And it's I've seen person of interest, or that direct links with Islamic terrorist organizations coming through Guatemala. Something
Yep.
that was of leaked not on purpose. It was an innocent leak really, because it was a meeting between President Trump in his first term with President Morales at some sort of public function, and President Trump asked something about terrorists and whatever, and Jimmy mentioned, yeah, we have caught over 100 in Guatemala. And it became a mess because he was not supposed to say it, because that
Yeah.
was a program that we were running with the Guatemalans and with other intelligence services from the world. But anyway, it
No,
became
no.
public.
Yeah.
But you should have seen the 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 blitz that the leftist media structure in the US and across Latin America started, that it was a lie, that's not true, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
Time,
Hmm.
time went
Yep.
by, and now time has proven us right, right? We have all
Oh
these
yeah. I mean,
guys, and we have all these signals inside the country that there are terrorist cells waiting to strike. So again, and we
yeah.
side with them and we protect them. And why? I mean, they are enemies of our way of life.
I mean, Hezbollah. I mean, Hezbollah was helping Maduro in Venezuela as well, and
Yep.
then that's well documented now, and it's well
Mhm.
established fact, which is a very big deal. Like that is a known Iranian proxy terror group operating
Mhm.
in our like in our side of the world
Yep.
with with kind of impunity. Honestly, I mean, like especially in how Maduro had kind of set up Venezuela as his own little drug cartel as well, with the Venezuelan army working all that too, is just insane to me that most people don't even understand too. That's why, like, people were like, why are we even going and get him? And I'm like, well, because he was essentially a drug cartel leader. Like that's what he turned the country into. I mean, when you have the Venezuelan military loading up ships full of drugs, I feel
Mhm.
like that makes that the president of that country a cartel leader,
Of
So
course. For sure. And you know what, you just to your point, you're right. You have Iran and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard with Hezbollah training people. Actually, Hezbollah was involved in training a lot of the members of Tren de Aragua that they brought out of jail, they trained them, and then they sent them up
yep,
to the United States. I mean,
yep,
if you see how they operate, how they take over buildings and apartment buildings here in the U.S. It's from the military perspective, is they're very good at it,
yep,
surprisingly good, and that's the people that we allow to go into the United States. And I'm going to say something that is going to, I hopefully, get a lot of people mad. But during the Biden administration, all of the countries along the migrant route, that's from the
hmm,
Darien in Colombia, between Colombia and Panama, then all the way up through Central America and then through Mexico. The Biden administration pressured the countries and gave them money to make sure that they would not stop or interdict the caravans that were coming through. In fact, they were throwing money at them to make sure they helped them to make it
it's
to the United
insane.
States.
It's insane.
That's,
It
I
doesn't
mean,
surprise me at all. I mean,
it's
the Biden
it's criminal.
administration, yeah, I mean, the Biden administration gave billions to non to NGOs inside the United States to help move illegal immigrants all over the United States. Once they were released inside the border, it helped them pay to move them all around.
Mhm.
Billions of dollars. I mean, this is all tracked now. I mean, this is all public information.
Yep.
And it's another thing that people don't realize. And Catholic Charities was a big one.
Yep.
There's so many, and it's one of these things
And
that
again,
it's
it's
like,
usually the human rights NGOs and the leftist NGOs and whatever artsy NGO there is. They are always the ones getting all the money and
yep,
implementing it in those type of programs. But here's the worst part of it all, that we have actual videos of NGOs that received USAID money back then. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you
mm-hmm,
would see these guys with their little vests with their whatever NGO name was on it, and handing bags of cash to cartel members, and they would be in charge of distributing it through inside the caravan to the different people in there.
mm,
They also had bags of chips of phones, and there's actually a recording of one of those guys who happened to be an American telling all these people, make sure you don't get caught, with the phone chips. Swallow them or destroy them or something. Make sure you don't get caught with them. So there was an
Outstanding.
actually really coordinated structure trying to get all
Yeah.
these people into the United States.
Yeah. I mean, it's criminal. It's one of the, it's just like, and now, and this is another thing, and they're using it. They're now, you have members of the, right wing people who are, there's not been enough deportations, there's not been enough this and not been enough that. But all the while, who's combating Trump this whole time? Like who's bringing up court cases? Who's every step of the way, stopping it? So it's the judges that have been in place by the same administrations. It's the same Democratic people, Democrat senators, Democrat House representatives that were a part of this whole initiative from the get-go. They're the ones fighting this. And we knew that, me and you, right? Like people like us and people, that have a brain at all, knew that they were going to fight back and knew that it wasn't going to be just as easy as, hey, we're just going to deport all these people that came here illegally because that's the right thing to do, right? And but it's how do we effectively explain to everybody that the process is happening, right? A lot of people have left voluntarily because of Trump's policies, and they are deporting. I mean, they're starting with the violent criminals first, which is, I mean, let's common sense, right? I think that's pretty important, and then we're kind of moving from there, but it is happening. I just,
Yeah,
how do
and
you get
as
it across to these people that like this is happening? It's just not everything happens at the speed of light like you want it to.
and as an immigrant, and some people have called me so many different things that I'm a traitor to my kind. When I'm a, what kind are you talking about? I'm an American first of all. Well, I'm a Texan by trade.
Right.
So and
I like it. Me too.
and and the thing is that you get to understand that when you immigrate, you are there to absorb the culture and become an American because that's where you want to go. It's the American dream. You want to become like them. You want to have the same opportunities that the ones that are born there get. Why am I
Right.
going to import my bullshit with me when I come to a place that is good? And I come from literally a shithole, right?
Right.
I mean, Trump probably, I mean, I don't know. He said it, and it became, an avenue of attack against him. But that the left, the global left, took against him. But oh, he called our countries shitholes. Well, fucker, because they are shitholes. But your
Yeah.
ideology turned them into shitholes. So
Right.
just accept what it is. It is what it is. It's the truth. And then all these people that came in, especially the ones that were sent or weaponized to come into the US, and they tried to import all this crap and all these things that are not our American way of life. So we
Right.
have to understand that. And I think it's good that they deported criminals first, then people willing to do it. But here's the next part that I think it's even more important. I think the United States needs to kick out all the leftist ideologues and criminals that the Democrats brought to the US that were utilized in all these different countries to push these bad things, that some of them actually had dealings and businesses with cartels and organized crime, and now happen to be political asylees in the US. I think there is an urgency there that
Yeah.
the United States government should review 100% of every single person that got political asylum in the United States throughout the Obama and Biden administration. Those are the people that are hiding now at universities, at labs, at NGOs, at think tanks,
Yep.
that at the end are the ones poisoning our people and the ones creating real problems. And those are the guys then that have the money and the networks to do even more damage. Who do you think
Yep.
is actually pushing all this narrative against Trump? The same thing that happened with the Pope. I'm a Catholic, and I'm the type
Yep.
of Catholic that, I carry the Jerusalem cross for a reason, because it is what it is. I mean, that's where my Lord and Savior, you know, defeated death and rose and gave us eternal life. But
Mm-hmm.
here's my point to that. Being a Catholic, the way I'm a Catholic, I am really offended, and I think it was a direct insult what the Pope just did by appointing this guy who came into the US illegally. Now he's a priest. Now he's a representative of the Vatican in the United States. That's a direct
Yep.
insult to Trump and the United States government. Who
Yep.
the hell do you think you are? Yes, you are the Pope, but you are the Pope only for Catholics, and only you have, I forget the word. What is it that we call the Pope, that he has, that he is unequivocal or something like that. I forget the word right now, but it's only in matters of faith specifically, not in political matters. And this is a political insult, right? It's the equivalent of someone sending a Satanist as an ambassador to the Vatican, because it is exactly what Trump is doing. How are you trying to force this guy to be a representative when he came as an illegal into
Yep.
country? And I think it's very important, and I'm going to say this, and even though I come from the intelligence world for most of my life, and I always said that both intelligence and journalism are sister careers, right? We do the same.
Yeah.
We capture information, we absorb it, we process it, and then we have a product at the end. What changes is whoever reads and whoever uses it.
Right.
The thing is that right now, you are seeing a posture by this Pope, even worse than the previous Pope, where he's trying to get a guy a pass for what he did simply because he has a sotana, or what we call the priest, the robes they wear, right? Same thing with journalists. They think that because they are journalists, they get a pass for doing all these other things, even sometimes criminal things. Like we have cases here in Guatemala of a guy that laundered money, guys that have been involved in domestic violence when they were drunk. They did
Right.
cocaine, whatever. Same thing in the United States. And because they are journalists, we are obligated to give them a pass? No,
Right.
no. That's, I mean, no profession, no work that you have done should give you a free pass to break the law. Period.
Right. Right.
Sorry, I got a little bit worked up on that, but it really pisses
No,
me off.
no, no. I mean, I'm not Catholic, so I don't listen to what the Pope says. It's important for Catholics to call out if the Pope is saying something that is inappropriate. I try not to get involved in, again, it's kind of a different, it's one, I don't understand how the Catholic Church works in that sense that well. So I know some of the things that he has said, I've been like, that's a little bit weird. And
But the
I
thing
kind of
is not,
dislike.
it's not that we're not that hierarchical, right? I mean, it's not like we're going to square up and say whatever you say. Hell no, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
I mean, Christ is our Lord, and that's it. But here's the most
Yeah.
important thing. I think it backfired, because a
Right.
lot of Catholics in the U.S., both no, or not both, but Americans, of British, Irish, Scottish descent, Catholics of Spaniard descent, Catholics of Latin American descent, but at the end see the nature of these doings, they are actually not happy about it. I think it
Right.
backfired.
Right. Well, I mean, not everyone, again, like you said, like there's a lot of cultures that have a lot of Catholics in them, and they don't like the leftist ideology. They don't like being pushed into this kind of way. And kind of like, I did see one of his posts, and it's a little socialisty, it's like a little, hey, everyone deserves to have all, like equal money type of things. I don't remember exactly what he put. But
Oh,
and it's kind of one of those
and
things. It's like you live in a your own little country that has walls all around it, and those walls were actually built because Muslims were going to kill you. So like,
mhm.
like maybe yes, I understand the views of Christianity that we are, turn the other cheek, all these other things, but at the same time, there's also the other side of Christianity that's like, we're not gonna just allow people to walk over us and kill us either. Like, there's a fine balance of this. And so it's just like I say with everything else. There's good leaders. There's leaders that do. I'm not saying he's a bad pope or a good pope, but there's leaders that do good things. There's leaders that do bad things.
Mhm.
It's good to call them out for what they are, and hopefully they they realize what the mistake was and they move on and they do
You know
better.
what surprises me though? The Pope Leo started good. He was, I think in a regular objective path, which is where he should stay. But he didn't become this politically oriented until this guy, I forget his first name, Axelrod, who was with Obama,
Yeah. Yep.
visited Vatican and had this weird meeting with him that they tried to deny, but it happened because he showed up in the schedule, whatever, in the public schedule, whatever. That's actually the inflection point where he went nuts and started going to the left against Trump. You know what worries
Right.
me? That he's compromised. And the left is actually utilizing him because he is compromised. That
Right.
means that we should look into that as Catholics, why he's acting like that, especially after that meeting with that political imperative from the left.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's worrisome.
Mm. There's a lot. I've had discussions on this on multiple other shows, with Gary over at Paramount Tactical and with, so many other guys. And we're trying to, there's no, again, without someone looking into all the finances and all the things, right. Without, basically the government would have to look into these things and make sure what's going on, which I think they are doing to some extent. I mean, we have the indictments from the SPLC. We have some of that happening, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it coming soon. But I think we have multiple modes. I think we do have people that are captured, that are compromised, right? That one way or another, whether it's through compensation, whether it's through coercion, or whether it's through just ideological
Blackmail.
capture, right? Yeah, blackmail from coercion, any of those ways. And then some of it, though, I think some of it is audience capture. I think some of these people see that if they post this, they get 1,000 times more likes and they get 1,000 times more engagements, and then that makes them more money. And and then these people repost them, and all these other people repost them, and it makes them feel good about it, and they keep doing the same thing, and we've seen this kind of growth of this movement, since October 7th, 2023. And I've seen it dramatically grow on X. And I mean, I remember back on X, my account wasn't big back then. Back then I was just arguing. Like, I literally just had an X account just to argue with people. That's pretty much all I did.
It's fun, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was my catharsis for the, having to deal with the world. I would just get on X and be like, well, you're an idiot, blah, 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 whatever. And just go on and argue. And there was very, very little anti-Semitism. There was all the left talking point, and there was the crazed Trump derangement syndrome still. There was all of the left stuff from COVID, right? We had all that that got ran. We had, all the crazy stuff from that, and we had all the troon, what I call it, because you have to be careful what you say, because we're on YouTube, which I don't actually care about YouTube that much. It's not, X is my main platform, and X doesn't care what we say, but the troon ideology that, with the school stuff that we've seen, these damaged people going into these schools and shooting up, Christian children and all that. We had all that, but we didn't have this massive anti-Semitism, this massive anti-Jew hate that we're seeing now. That is just it's just everywhere. Like, I never had to combat the anti-Semitism stuff, especially not from the right. Like, occasionally there was some weirdo from the left. There was those weird accounts. Like, there was always Stu Peters, who was an idiot, who always has hated Jews. There's always those few accounts that were like Nick Fuentes has for a long time been that way. But it was never it's not even mainstream what I would say now, but it's a much more prevalent issue on social media today. And it's insane to see these propaganda pushes, and it's exactly what it is. And for me and you, we see that and we're like, oh, this is not organic. This is not
exactly
real. It's not based on actual history, and I know they're lying. So so this is obviously propaganda. And then you just see all these people pushing all these same things, and what gets me is the way that propaganda has evolved to where, which is to say it actually hasn't. I mean, they do the same things that the Nazis used to do. The Nazis used to put a bunch of pictures of, people, of just random people sometimes, and they'd put like their names under them, and then they'd say they put like what they were, and they'd be like, these are all evil Jewish people that are trying to ruin our society. And half of them weren't even Jews, right? But they would just like do that. And we're seeing the same thing happen today. And I'm like, guys, that's literally propaganda. That's what that is. And
you know what? Something about the propaganda thing, but before I go into the propaganda, if I may, what really surprises me, and sometimes I'm just baffled about it, that even though, and it's again the left, the Democrats that are pushing this anti-Semitic propaganda and psyop throughout the United States and pushing it outwards as well, it still is in the United States one of the biggest groups when it comes to religions that donate to the Democrats are Jewish. Why? I don't
that blows
get
my
it.
mind too. I don't get it. I don't get it at
Weird.
all. Some of it's been hijacked, and then some of it is they just use again. So like, I think that some of these Jewish people are not, they're not practicing, they're not practicing Judaism, and I don't know, but like being a capo is not going to help you in the long run, right? Like they found that out in Germany a long time ago. They found that out in France. They found it out in the Soviet Union. The Jewish members of the higher levels of the Soviet Union under Stalin, that they lasted through the Polish Inquisition, kind of, if you want to call it that. But after the Poles were kind of dealt with, and that enemy was dealt with, then the next enemy was the Jews, and then it all got cycled through. And so it's like, guys, why would you donate to these people that ultimately hate you and will use you in the end as an enemy?
And I'm going to bring back this topic, but ideology, especially for the left, they get in bed with some very strange and weird and dangerous groups. Like, this is actual, this is a whole process, but it is known now that we call it in Latin America net centers. In the US, most people call them bot farms, right? But there is a difference. Bot farms are automated. Net centers are actual people with 10, 15, 20 accounts posting the same stuff in different versions with their different accounts, right? Surprisingly, we found out, and well, not we, but in general, let's call it the intelligence community and their collaborators around the Western Hemisphere, that the net centers that are working, pushing the a very anti-US propaganda, anti-Trump, the ones that were pushing all this violence against him, also that pushed a lot of violent messages against the charge of affairs here in Guatemala that recently was moved to Venezuela to help over there, that were pushing the pro-Iran propaganda, that are pushing the pro-narco and pro-leftist propaganda, are all integrated into this big structure of interlinked organizations that receive money from, or used to receive money from USAID, that get money from Soros, but also are getting a lot of dark money from Iran.
Right.
And those are the people that are pushing all this propaganda, and why there is a lot of these, weird feeling in the United States where what's really going on. I mean, you and me, it's easy to detect propaganda, but when you see people that are not that tech savvy or not that digitally involved in getting their information from social media, they will actually believe almost anything.
Yeah. I talk about this often, and part of the problem is just the general lack of knowledge of history. You don't have to go be You don't have to go be a history like guru. You don't have to learn everything there is to know about history. But you need to know a little bit about it, right? Like get a cliff notes of some of the Bloodlands by dang, I always forget his name. Timothy Snyder. So that book right there, and I've talked about this book before for people that it's the best. It's one of the best books that'll give you the best perspective of kind of how the 30,000-foot overview of what Europe was when Hitler and Stalin were rising, and then how they both orchestrated their mass murder campaigns in Europe, and all the people that were just caught in the wake of these two just horrible men that killed so many people. And really, it's men, but it's also ideology, right? So, and like it was these men that used these ideologies, but it was really ideology that killed this massive amounts of people.
Well, think about it. It's always the left that go for, first off, censoring people, right?
Yep.
Then they talk about encamping and reprogramming conservatives.
Yep.
And then they talk about, they use words like unaliving or make sure they don't consume any more oxygen. Even the coded words they use throughout the United States and Latin America, they use it. Where does it come from? From these same people that committed these atrocities in history. It's the same book, it's the same people, it's the same line. They've been able to push a lot of that stuff, for instance, specifically the whole Nazi thing. That's their favorite insult. And they are the original Nazis. And I get into these arguments a lot, specifically in Latin America, right? We say, oh, you Nazi because you this and this. Dude, I am pushing for actually free press and allow people to say whatever they want. No, you should not be allowed to say whatever you want because what you say is poison. No, dude, whatever it is, what I say, it's my right to say it. The simple fact that you cannot debate it because you're either too stupid to debate it or you simply don't have anything to actually counter argue it doesn't mean that I should be silenced. Yes, you should be silenced and killed, and then they block you, right? That's kind of like their go-to strategy. But again, it's the same thing all the time. These aggressive postures that has led us also to the attempts against President Trump. But again, Trump was just, I'll send you a link that, and I have a standing column on Newsmax. That's that the left usually retorts to the worst of their solutions when it comes to maintaining power. But think about it. The left in the past 10 years is the only political ideology that has committed or tried to commit magnicide throughout the world. Examples really quickly. Bolsonaro in Brazil, they tried to kill him. They tried to stab him. This other guy that was an attorney general, but that was going to run for the presidency in Ecuador, they killed him. They killed him as well. Then you had the attack in Mexico, I think, of a candidate as well. Colombia, they killed this other dude, young guy, that was also going to become a president. In Europe, they killed a guy as well. I think where was it? In Germany, I think. They killed a lot of the members of the conservative political party over there. Again, and it's their rhetoric, right? Their instigator rhetoric that has become very, very what's the word I'm looking for? It's poison, it's venom, and it actually goes so quickly into the minds of these people that they normalize it. And I think we have to push against that. And I'm going to bring something really quickly, and I don't want it to sound weird, but as a Christian, and we could go into a very, very deep rabbit hole here, but the whole thing with turning the other cheek is not necessarily just accept violence upon you. It's not.
Right.
It has to do with the culture back then, right? Because if you get hit on the right, put the left, because trying to slap you with the backhand meant something else, right?
Right.
And then actually you think also about what Christ said about, If you have a cloak, sell it and get a sword. And
Right.
again, if you then think about Christ he was not a pacifist. He fought in his own way, but he turned tables, beat the crap out of people as well in the temple. So we have a calling as well to defend our own. So again, and I tell these people here in Latin America, right? I've been, uh, insulted and threatened by people in Argentina, in Colombia, in Mexico, here in Guatemala, especially. But I always tell them, dude, as a Christian, I will show you there is a God when you are asking for, mercy, because I'm going to beat the crap out of you if you come close to
Yep.
me or the people I love. So stay to Twitter, stay next, keep saying whatever you want. You have the right to say it, but don't get close to me because you're going to meet God rather quickly. Just don't.
Right.
And I think there has to be an understanding as well that that's what these people are provoking, because especially people that have been in the military or law enforcement, we're going to protect ourselves, the people we love, and our communities. Now, if you start
Mhm.
getting these crazies in here, again, they're going to get to meet Christ rather quickly, and we have to accept, and that's what we have to normalize, especially as Americans, that we're willing to defend our country, our
Yep.
people, and our way of life, regardless of the measures that we have to come to, even, even if it looks bad on TV, but that's the right thing to do, because our
Yeah.
enemies, they're, the dragon is at the gate. We just have not accepted that it's right there.
Oh, I'm a firm believer that Trump coming in 2016 foiled a lot of plans for the globalists, foiled a lot of plans for the Democrats that they thought Hillary Clinton was a lock. I mean, she literally posted on her birthday, happy birthday to this future president. Like she thought it was a done deal. She was 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that foiled a lot of plans. I think that's why we saw some of the things that we saw happen. Um, I've talked to people before about why I think that COVID was an op, and not that
It was.
not that uh, every single aspect of COVID was an op, but the way that the media and the way that it was used and the way that Democratic governors, especially once certain decisions by Trump were made, which those decisions, which I criticized Trump for in the time, were made because he was getting information from people inside of his cabinet and people that he had trusted that were, obviously what we found out to be not to be trusted agents. And then the media and then these Democratic governors, these Democratic lawmakers pushed into these other directions. I mean, now we're seeing, they have reports now that Ilhan Omar's brother got tons of money from the PPP program from
Her
COVID. So like all this was,
husband, you
all this,
mean?
yeah, her husband brother. Yeah, her husband brother. So, I mean, we're seeing, I think we're going to see a lot more information coming out. I know we have, I know we have a lot of these investigative journalists. They're doing great work. You have Cam Hibby, you have Nick Shirley, some of these guys going in there. They're finding the initial breadcrumbs and they're putting them out. And then the federal government is able to come in and kind of, because a lot of people don't understand that just bureaucracies, they suck, right? The federal government sucks. The federal government ruins a lot of things that it touches. I used to have a saying that like the army made everything that could be fun like not fun, and that was the same way in SF. Like right, like oh
Oh, God,
you think
tell
jumping
me
out of an
about it.
airplane, right? Like you think jumping out of an airplane is fun. Well, guess what? The army is going to make it not fun because they're going to make it
Oh,
terrible. It's gonna be the worst experience that you ever have because you're gonna like get in all this super uncomfortable equipment. It's gonna take forever. Then you're gonna have to be all uncomfortable in it forever, and then you got to wait for this dude to come by and like check you, and then it's just like this whole thing, and then it's gonna be hot. You're just be sweating, and then you got to pee. You can't go pee because now you have all this stuff on. Like it's just the whole drill. Like it's just a whole thing, right?
it's I had this instructor, and some stuff that had to do with asymmetric warfare, but it's like, I'm going to give you 4 hours of misery before you get 5 minutes of fun. I'm like, oh God, I know what that is.
Yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah.
horrible, but still, I
It's the
would do it
way,
again.
man. Yeah, no, for sure. But so, like I said, these getting some of this going, getting some of this jump started by civilians, by people that are just willing to go do this stuff on their own. and it's working, and I think it's gonna help. And I think it also, I've talked about it every show. People are gonna be like, why do you talk about this every show? I talk about letters of marque. I talk about the changes. You
Hmm.
probably know about the changes that happened in '08 when all the stuff with Blackwater happened, and kind of
Yeah.
how the
Hmm.
sweeping changes that changed
Yeah.
the private military contracts, and how we can no longer be offensive when we're in another country. If you're a civilian, right? If you're an American civilian in another country, you have to be defensive only. And letters of marque give teeth back to American citizens to kind of fight back against some of our enemies. And I think that that's important. And I really hope that we start looking at all these problems, and not from this perspective
I
that,
think
the
I think
federal
it's Senator
government has
Lee,
to.
the one pushing that, right?
Yeah, Mike Lee. Yeah, he's pushing
Good.
that, the letters of marque,
Good.
because
I hope so, because
I
we
hope
are
so
going to
too.
extend respect for America again through
It,
our
it
civilian force.
it's such a big deal. I mean, so right now the U.S. government has a monopoly on all aspects of offensive engagements, which includes, I mean, any aspect of war or any offensive engagement involving U.S. citizens is 100% owned by the U.S. government, and 100% owned by U.S. government forces. Which, okay, you could say, okay, maybe that's a good. It's not a good thing in the sense that the US government can't respond to every single thing in the world. The world's big, right? There's too much going on. There's too much, like, we just can't have the US government respond to everything. We can't have the US Navy interdict every single boat. There's too many of them. There's I don't know, hundreds of millions of boats, right? What are you
Yep.
going to do? They don't have the manpower, they don't have the capabilities. It's just impractical to even think that it's possible to do that. Same thing
Yep.
with all that, like what's going on in Africa, what's going on in other parts of the world, that US companies could take the brunt of the risk, could take the brunt of the cost, because
Mhm.
again, a lot of these, whether they're
Because they're
contractors.
benefiting there as well,
Right,
right? So
right,
protect
right,
your investment and
right.
way of life or
Well,
way of fortune.
how many US companies that are operating in some of these countries would pay offensive, like, if another US company, like a US private military company, could come in and operate offensively to protect US
Mhm.
interests, how many of those
Yep.
companies would pay for that to happen? They don't. So you're not bringing in the US government, and we don't. Why would we need to involve them? Like,
Yep.
within the law, like, within, you're still required to follow US law, right? That you're still required to follow all the Geneva Convention, all the things that you'd be required to follow regardless. Sorry.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
that's just one of those things that it makes sense. It would, and it takes the burden from the taxpayer, and it also takes some of the risk away from the U.S. government. Why
Yep.
aren't we doing this? There's so many of these common sense solutions to these dynamic problems that we're seeing in today's world, and
Agree.
and and it doesn't, and it's not only just for PMCs either. I mean, think about the propaganda problem, right? What about these tech firms?
Yeah.
What about a intelligence outfits, like, that you are familiar with, that could interdict some of these foreign ops that are pushing propaganda on US
Yeah.
citizens, on US soil.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I'm completely in favor of that. Letters of marque or marquee, whatever, whatever version you want to use. But I think they're necessary, especially because, I mean, the amount of threat vectors against the U.S. are just growing, and they're growing exponentially. And it's not because, oh, Trump is so evil that he's creating new enemies. No, we still have the same enemies. The problem is that the Democrats were in bed with them because they
Yeah.
needed to cause all these damage inside the U.S. so they could perpetuate themselves in power, right? So that's
Yep.
one of the things we have to push the fight outwards to make sure that we don't lose it and we don't have to fight it at home. But
Yep.
talking about the U.S. kind of do everything for everyone around the world, and and if we go back to Dynamo, that's specifically the gap that exists and where we excel, right? Because I always say this: if the U.S. government would build a mechanism to rescue Americans when they find themselves stranded around the world,
Right.
you would have to create a bureaucracy about the size of, I would say, the homeland, about homeland security, because that would
Oh,
mean that you would have to have the ability to respond to any place in the world with a lot of people collecting a lot of intelligence, with a lot of assets distributed around the world to be able to help these Americans. And think about it, by if you just try to find out and research at any given moment in the US, I'm sorry, around the world, there is at least, I think, something between, there is not an official number, but something between, I think it's like 7 and 12 million Americans around the world at any given moment.
yeah. I mean,
Just,
this is
either on
yeah,
vacation, work,
yeah.
or whatever, I mean, think about
It's a
responding to
massive
all that
footprint.
amount of people. It's
Yeah,
massive.
yeah,
But that's why
massive footprint.
Dynamo exists, right? And
Yeah,
again, we don't take from the taxpayers. It's Americans helping Americans, and
yep,
again, it's because, I mean, come, like you said, we are the most philanthropic nation in the world. The U.S. alone gives more by their citizens than, I think it's something like 75% of all the governments put together, or something like that.
yep,
That's how much. That's the big heart of the Americans, right? They
yep,
donate to American organizations, to foreign organizations, to all these different things. And again, Dynamo gets to do this because it's Americans helping Americans. But again, we at the same time help the US government, not having to take away from actual fights that we need to engage in. I'm not necessarily talking about kinetic wars, but diplomatic things, intelligence things that suddenly would have to divert a lot of assets to help a set of Americans, when you have other guys like us willing to do it and not take away from our taxpayers.
right. No, it's a perfect segue because we got into the weeds of all the ideological stuff, but
Yep.
so yeah, let's talk about let's hear some stories about some of the human trafficking, like
Yep.
tell some of the our viewers some of the stuff you've seen, some of the you're saving Americans, right? But like, what are some of the other things you've seen? Some of the other things that you're interdicting, and some of those
Mhm.
cool aspects.
Yep. Absolutely. So let me go back to when I was the intel chief in Guatemala. We were running a counter narcotics operation in a beautiful small little town here in Guatemala called Antigua. It's a colonial city. It's protected by UNESCO. It's a beautiful little place. It was the first capital city of Guatemala, but also it was the general captaincy of the new Spanish kingdom during the American conquest, right? Or I'm sorry, the European conquest in the 1400s. Um, so it's small little town, beautiful, very good restaurants, incredible bars and clubs, and we were conducting this operation. We were tracking this network of people that were selling very, very high quality cocaine, and it was being sold to tourists and locals and whatever. So, a lot of intelligence was into it. We had local assets, some American assets as well. It was a very, very cool operation, and we ended up coming across a child prostitution ring.
Oh,
And unfortunately, it was horrible. It was a very well coordinated and planned system. Like, they had this ugly place, or better said, this place that looked like a hole in the wall, nasty entrance, but inside it was like a luxury small hotel. And they would bring indigenous girls and boys, and then people would find a way, and there was a specific process they had, and they would go in, purchase their service and whatever, and do these horrible things to these little kids, right?
mm-hmm.
uh, People that we found that were actually consuming these were a couple of Americans, Europeans, and Asians. And obviously, it's hard to control the reaction of a sane, normal person when they see this, right? And what these
Right.
people were doing to these kids. And yeah, they got a little bit of justice, let's call it that, because we were not able to control. First off, we were in an intelligence operation. Yes, there was law enforcement there, but in a very, very protracted way. And people, got a hold of them before the cops could join and protect them and put them in a freaking cruiser and take them out and take them to the city and in jail. And then it became sort of an international uh, incident, right? Because you
Right.
had these tourists caught in these things, but it was better just to fly them out and bring and make sure that the accusation would fly with them, and put a ban on them so they could never come back. But again,
Wow.
it's that was my first experience with not only child trafficking at that level, but also with the whole thing of the, the dark web of pedophilia tourism there is in the world, right? I think it's probably the most despicable thing there is in the world. Uh, think about the fact that right now, human and child trafficking is right below drug trafficking when it comes to profit margins, right? And the thing is that human and child trafficking is a completely circular economy because they actually get to take advantage 100% of the individual they traffic. They start with prostitution and all these different things, and after time, when the individual is no longer usable from the sexual perspective or too damaged or whatever, they also harvest their organs and their skin and everything. So they use 100% of the person from life to death. That's why it's
It's
so
insane.
profitable, and it's sick. And the thing is that it's something that is pervasive and it's hiding out in the open. The worst
Right.
part of it all, and I'm not referring only to the US, but the US is obviously included, but it happens in every country in the world,
Right.
that everything starts with family members, close community leadership, and even authorities.
Mm.
So there is this alliance, not alliance, but it's this network, impromptu network sometimes of people willing to sell their own, and someone that connects them to all this bigger network that obviously needs some sort of government backup to be able to function. And I'm not saying that the government or governments are behind this, just saying
Right.
that there are bureaucrats and police people and
Right.
firefighters and social workers that are involved in human and child
Yep.
trafficking. And again, I think it's probably one of the things that is the most damaging to our culture and society,
Hmm.
because it also affects the way we absorb it, because we are in a way not being able to protect the most innocent in our community. And I think that's why we have to be more aggressive about it, not only from the non-for-profits and organizations that do the work, but also the government, on the government side. I think we
Yep.
definitely have to be more aggressive about it. And to me, and this is something that my family on my dad's side, it's very close to the church and the curia and the hierarchy in a specific Catholic order. And there's this great guy. His name is Ugo Santucci. He's like a very very senior priest in the Don Bosco's order, Salesian order is the name. And he always told me, listen, because I honestly went to confession with him when we saw all this that happened, because it really charged me a lot. It was heavy. It was something that I didn't want to keep in my soul and my spirit. So I just needed to bring it out, because everything that I felt when I saw what was being done. And he told me something that stuck to me, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so militaristic about bringing real harsh, merciless justice to these monsters. And it's like, think about it. A person that dares to rape a child is not only raping the child and damaging his psychology and his innocence, he is executing and murdering his or her soul.
Yep.
Because that child is never going to have that
Yep.
innocence, that pureness ever again. Plus, the entire thing of demonic possession that happens every time a rape occurs, right?
Mhm.
And let's not get into the spiritual part there yet, but that's why I think that anyone that has to do with raping a child or damaging a child, there should not be any sort of mercy. There should be, what's the name of this thing they use? Summary judgment. Just rather
Yep.
quickly execute them. That's
Get
it.
out.
Period. And put
Wood chipper.
burn the body, put it in the ground. You don't even want to use those parts for harvesting organs or whatever. Just burn them
Mm.
because that's the only way people are
Demons,
going
man.
to learn. Exactly, man. Exactly. And there is something that I always say the only way this is going to curve down because evil is not going to stop. It's not going to disappear. You're not going to be able to stop pedophilia around the world, but you
No.
can curve it down a lot
Mhm.
a lot really the moment you start executing these monsters. And
No.
again, dude, and I don't want to get into it, but the whole Epstein thing, I think the DOJ still owes the American people a lot,
Yeah.
about that. How come they just arrested a guy for trespassing the Epstein Island, but none of the pedos that went in there are still in jail? Come on, man. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's insulting to us.
I mean, part of me. So part of that was, I believe, was used as an op against Trump. In a sense that there's not a lot of prosecutable evidence in the files, at least not the files that have been released so far. I mean, from what I've went through and from what a lot of people have went through and looked, maybe they're holding back some that they're building cases. I hope that's what's happening. I hope they're building cases on some of these people that they have enough information that they can they action some of these people and actually get charges filed and arrest some of these people. It has to happen because it's such
It has
a
to.
it's one of those things too. If you don't enforce, like, this was such a big thing, if you don't enforce the law against some of these elite people, then you're going to
Mhm.
lose the faith of everybody else in your ability to
No,
enforce the law.
and
And
and again,
then
it's not only this government. This has
right.
been in the books. This has been I mean, the DOJ has been investigating this for almost what, a decade and a half. So it's not
Yep.
only the responsibility of Trump. You're talking
Right.
about,
No, I mean, this all started
Trump,
in '08.
Biden,
The
Trump again,
initial,
and
yeah,
then
the initial arrest of Epstein was '08. So,
who was that? That
Obama,
was.
so Obama didn't do anything. And then
Mhm.
the arrest in 19 under Trump was at the end. So COVID's happening, and that's the end of Trump, his term right
Mhm.
there. And he, the election's coming up, which he ends up losing. So then we have Biden for 4 years.
Did he
Nothing happens
though?
with it.
Did he lose the
Yeah.
elections though?
Right. Yeah. But so then we have Biden for 4 years. Nothing happens. And then that's what frustrates me with all this now is they're like, all these people, they're like, he's going to, release the files, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, they did release them. I think they were a little. Now, Trump didn't run on like the Epstein files being a thing. Like, that wasn't one of his huge policies. He said he was going to try to release, like, he was like, I'm going to release them, because why wouldn't he? He's not, if there was anything on Trump really negative in there, the
Oh,
Democrats would
they
have
it would
used
have.
it against him,
Oh,
like they would have
of
used it to burn
course.
him. They would have burned 50 of their own just to burn him. And that's that's the truth. And so if there would have been anything in
Exactly.
there, they would have used it against him. I think what it came down to was everyone just, and another thing too is people just expect they go back to the whole, this goes back to the whole what the difference between information and intelligence, and what people don't understand,
Hmm.
that intelligence is actually just information that's been analyzed and then put towards, towards, then it becomes intelligence towards whatever mode or aspect that it's going to work towards. They expected this all to be like this perfect little file that's going to tell them exactly who was bad and what all the bad things that they did, so that everyone could be like, oh, this guy was really bad and he did this, and and there's a video, and and that's not what it was, because that's not realistic. And
Yeah.
though these people, yes, these people were evil, they were also rich, and they also were not all like stupid, right? So they're not just like straight up
So they cover
incriminating
their
themselves,
tracks.
right? They cover their tracks. They're not going to incriminate themselves on a regular basis. And the few that did, hopefully, again, hopefully those people go to jail, and hopefully there's enough that will come out about it. But I think I did have a question. So with all with the work that you guys are doing with the anti, especially the child trafficking, human trafficking, is it how easy is it working with some of these other governments, as opposed? I've heard that working with the U.S. government in this as an NGO is difficult, right? Is it easier to work with some of these other governments and get some things
No,
done and like that?
in general, it's difficult because obviously you have all these limitations, right? Because we are not law enforcement. There are not so many things that we can do. So
Right,
where we get into is really a lot of intelligence sharing. We do get a lot of reports into our system, right? So projectdynamo.net, our website, have a specific thing there where you can register and ask for help. And we get a lot of reports from people. Hey, I know because I was trafficked, and this police chief here in such a city, or these firefighters from this specific engine here, and this house here, they are involved in this, or this social worker in this office, and this is from throughout the entire United States. And then I'm like, God, I mean, what do you do with this amount of information? Obviously, we
right,
don't have the capabilities to check into that, nor the authorities to actually investigate into it. So the only thing we can do is share information with law enforcement. But then when there is
right,
something that really we can help with, really where we get involved in is obviously in getting trying to participate with them, but kind of helping with, let's call it the downstream effect of this whole thing, right? But upstream is when you go in, law enforcement goes in, arrests people, rescue kids, and the downstream is when the kid goes into treatment and safe houses and everything. That's where we try to get involved, or the coordination
okay,
in between report, law enforcement, and rescue, right? I'll give you
right,
one case that I think was, you know, I feel so happy about it, and it was incredible. And I'm pretty sure not many people have been able to achieve these, at least not on the non-for-profit side. But
right.
last year we get a report actually from a Green Beret, a retired Green Beret, that reached out directly to Mike Heisman, who is actually, I think he's watching us. Just said, show some more
Yeah,
biceps. There you go,
I saw
brother.
him comment earlier. Well, I love Mike. He
But
was awesome.
oh, he's awesome, man. He's awesome. He's Mike is honestly, he's like the soul of Project Dynamo. I mean, he really understands the entire intricacies of planning, of processing all these things. He plans to the last cent, to the last minute, to the first second. The brain in that guy is scary, but
It's
he
awesome.
also has this way with people. His voice is calming, and
Hmm.
sometimes, especially in the military, right, you get into this way of operating, and when people are stressed, you find this way to calm them down. It's usually just with harshness and a little bit of tough love, whatever. He gets to calm people down by talking and make them go docile. I'm like, dude, you need to handle this group of people because I'm gonna grab them by the neck and just push them in the bus. You handle
Yep,
them
yep.
anyway. But going back to where I was, so we get this report. It's this little girl. I think it was out of, I can't remember if it was Memphis, I forget the city where it was, but the father reaches out and he's like, my girl, she has been kidnapped by her own mother and she sold her. I found out that her own mother might, and the story is that in fact this woman sold her own daughter to pay her boyfriend's cocaine debt with the Mexican cartel. So the girl was brought to Mexico, and obviously this was happening in parallel, right? The father, thank God, found out rather quickly when this was happening, and the girl was on the move already towards Mexico. We started moving everything we could, all the different, you know, people that we could reach out to, and our former advisory board member Ron Johnson, bring him up again. He was recently arrived in Mexico as an ambassador. I reached out to him. It's like, dude, I'm putting my people right now. Let me just, who do we talk to? Blah blah blah. We start coordinating. We fly in, and dude, just by the mercy of God, and I'm so thankful for this, we just found her just in time before she got into what they call the pipeline. Had she gotten into the pipeline, it would have been impossible to find her. So just
Right.
we were able to find her. The equivalent of Ebola was put out in Mexico, and the authorities stopped this vehicle. The girl was in there. They left the vehicle. The perps managed to escape. The girl was brought into a safe house in Mexico, treated, and thank God nothing had happened to her other than the traumatic experience, obviously, but nothing of the
Right.
heinous things that we could think of, which is usually the uh, me personally is what I'm always scared of when we get into these type of cases, that I'm going to have to handle a traumatized
Hmm.
kid, because I have kids of my own, and I would
Hmm.
kill for them. No, no, no.
Yes.
I will I will fix my situation with God later, but I would
Oh
kill for
yeah,
them,
I
and
got two daughters. I feel you, bro.
yeah,
I feel you.
I would kill for any child. That's the truth. I remember
Hmm.
I read a book a long time ago. I can't remember the name of the author, but he was a former FBI director. I think he had an Italian last name, but the book is called My FBI. I think it's that book, and there is a quote there somewhere that he was investigating a child trafficking or child abduction, and some cop or something told him that we have to protect children because all children are ours. That's something that I try to bring into
Hmm.
Dynamo, right? Every children is our children. They are our
Right.
children, all of them. We just have, regardless of citizenship, of country of origin, of color, whatever age, a child is a child, and we have to protect them with everything that we have.
Yes.
So, thank God. So we took control of the child, of the little girl. She was safe, sound, obviously traumatized, and we flew her to the U.S., put her in her dad's arms. We have a beautiful picture of them. It's actually somewhere on our website there,
That's
getting
awesome.
together and everything. But think about it. It's just, and it talks specifically to how dangerous child trafficking is in our society, where if a mother is willing to do that, think about any other person close to the family that could be involved or compromised to be a child trafficker as well. Because it also happens that, they kidnap children on demand, and what they do is they find someone they can co-opt or coerce to get the children or get the child somewhere where they can take control of him or her, right?
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful. And I think that's something that it's very important. And we also, we work on that as well, training communities, or
Right.
how to get parents in schools to understand that we have to be more mindful and more deliberate about protecting children, because there are demons amongst us that are willing to do very bad things to them.
Right.
We, as parents, we have to be, way more um, paranoid in a way
Yeah.
of who gets close to our children. If we're going to send them to a house, make sure that the parents at that house know that we are present, that the father in that house is willing to come in guns blazing and protect their kids. So no
Right.
shenanigans are going to go around them. But also same thing with schools and teachers. Make sure that all those people know that you as a father, you are as a mother, are willing to burn the world for your children. That's one of the main
Yep.
ways to protect them. Just let people know that your children have parents willing to do anything for them. And I think that's
Yep.
the first barrier. That's the first defense against all these bad people. But then also be more, we have to be more demanding with our local and state governments when it comes to handling all these people and all these, supposedly they have to be called maps, minor attracted people, pedos.
Oh, uh,
Let's make it public. They have to leave aside the whole thing of shaming them. We just have to be. I mean, we have the right to know where they're at and make sure they are away from schools, away from parks, away from anywhere where children can be, gathering or having fun. We have to protect them. The only way to protect them is to get rid of these monsters or put them aside, put them away. I don't know. I don't care. So it's not my obligation to take care of them, but it's the government's. And
right.
at the end, both us civilians, the government, our main responsibility are our innocent, because first off, they came into the world not because they wanted, we brought them in. So now we
Hmm.
have not only a parental obligation to protect them, but the government as well, because they are our future.
Right.
So again, I think it's an effort that has to do not only with recovering the ones that have been lost, making sure that no more kids get trafficked or lost, but also
Right.
teaching them, uh, also to be more even, offensive of their own. And like I
Hmm.
told my wife once, we were getting into this argument because this was maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago. My oldest child, who's now 15, we were at a place, and this kid, a little bit older than him, grabbed his little stuffed animal, right? And my kid, he was probably 3.5, 4 years old.
Hmm.
Literally, he didn't let go of his stuffed animal, but grabbed the little kid by the cheek. Just went and whack, grabbed the kid's cheek, and he wouldn't let go. The other little kid went nuts, started crying, whatever. When he started yelling, my kid let go, just grabbed his little toy, just went to the side next to me, and I'm like, dude, let's get the fuck out of here because this is gonna be a mess. So I
Yep.
went to I went to the car. My wife came out. It's like, what happened? Oh well, this kid tried to take Mac's stuffed toy, and Mac defended himself. That's your fault. You and your brother always has to be fixed. Everything has to be fixed with violence. I told her straight, hey, listen, I'd rather have my kid tour a lot of different schools in the US or Guatemala, wherever we are at that moment, than touring a lot of psychologists because he
Yep.
doesn't know how to stand his ground and defend himself. I
100%.
mean, I think there's a need for our children to, as parents, I think, and because the world is becoming more violent and the left is normalizing violence, we have
Yep.
to be willing to teach our children also how to face that violence. I'm not
Yep.
talking about being violent, but again, and this from Jordan Peterson, right? You know, a good man is a violent man that keeps it under control.
Right.
A peaceful man is the guy that knows how to exert violence, but his sanity and his responsibility towards society helps him keep it under control. That doesn't mean he's not willing to use it when he has to. And we have
Hmm.
to be, again, that type of society where violent men are capable of controlling their violence, but also are capable of using it when they have to.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I'm teaching my kids the same thing. Like you guys are never going to be a victim, right? That's what
Exactly.
I'm raising you to never be a victim. And if you are a victim, then you need to remedy that issue immediately, right? So that you
Yeah.
are not so that you can't be a victim. Because if you allow yourself to be a victim in any situation, I mean, there's a reason. Like sometimes my wife will be like, "What are you doing?" Like we walk into a place and I'm like looking at I'm checking all the exits. I'm checking, it's just it's second nature now. but I'm not walking into a situation where I'm going to be put in a position that I don't control the outcome of whatever is going to happen there. And I want my children to feel the same way about, life in general, just because you never know what's going to happen anymore. I mean, think about in Israel on October 7th, right? How 1,200 people that day, they woke up and they had no idea that the worst things imaginable were about to happen to them. And in a lot of them were not prepared. And I just look at the world and I'm like, nope, that's not going to be me, man. Like, it's not gonna be me. It's not gonna be my children. I would much rather have the conversation with my child that, hey, maybe you went a little too hard right there, and we need to work on knowing when to use certain amounts of force on certain, in certain situations. I'd rather have that conversation than have like the other kind of conversation where, or not be able to have the conversation at all because they weren't able to keep themselves from coming to harm. And I like the other point. I like the other point you made too. I've had some people on here, like when I call out, some of these bad people for things, and they're like, so is this a call to violence? And I'm like, no, like, dude, you don't understand how like me or how the people that are kind of like me work. Like, we're not going to call for violence, right? If it ever comes to that point, you will know that it came to that point, because we were finally pushed to the point where now everyone will see what you just pushed us to, right? And so that's the only way to say that. Like, do I ever want it to get to that point? Absolutely not, dude. Like, I enjoy dropping my kids off at school and then grabbing a Starbucks occasionally, and like, just I enjoy the easy life where we don't have to deal with any of this nonsense. But at the same time, like, when push comes to shove and we have to go get back into the, wade through the mud and the muck and the blood, like, bro, I mean,
Hey,
it
we
you
know
know,
what
it
it
is.
tastes and smells like, so we can do that again.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I
So,
always say that. I mean, these people, again, it sounds redundant, but we have to say it. The leftists, the socialists, the communists, hiding under the liberal umbrella, they are pushing us to that because they have normalized their violence. They have normalized their incendiary rhetoric in a way that they they are the only ones that get to do it because they are morally right
right.
to be able to exert it, right? Anyone else?
Yep.
No, only them. Give you
Yep.
an exact,
Exactly.
there is an example here in Guatemala. This dude who actually, it was a student, a university student group that took over an entire university, small campus, one of the satellite campuses of the national university here. They were living inside. The fucker had Molotovs inside the building, and then he got recorded outside Guatemalan Congress, and he literally grabbed a cell phone and hit a congressman on the head with a cell phone. And now there is, and he, and they brought charges against him and all this stuff. But you should see the amount of human rights activists and NGOs that come out and protect him, somehow actually excusing him for doing that and his lack of control and his criminal intent, because that's what it is, it's criminal intent. But because he's a
Right.
leftist activist, he gets to do it and get a pass.
Yep.
It's the same thing in the United States, all this violent rhetoric. Imagine someone from the conservative side saying something Jimmy Kimmel said to the first lady, that she looked
Yep.
like a soon-to-be widow or whatever. They would be burning him alive. They would have already doxed him, canceled him, all sorts of things. But when it comes to their own activists and their own hotheads, no one says anything, and everything gets buried. And something is more
Mm-hmm.
important at that time, right? But then someone on the
Or
conservative
if
side,
a
go ahead.
a GOP candidate was running with the Nazi death camp, SS tattoo on his chest, and
Oh.
was a pretty, was a Nazi,
Or
that would be,
a conservative congressman or senator in bed with an escort, right? Or with a
yeah, oh yeah,
Chinese spy.
yep, yep, oh yeah, all the things, man. It's all of it's okay for one side to do, but it's like, all of a sudden, anyone on it's just such a double standard. And that's, it's just part of the battle again
Mhm.
against the left. They're going to do the same things. And that's another reason why people need to go learn history, and
Mhm.
they need to go read some of the, again, you don't have to go deep dive. You don't have to go into learn every little aspect of it, but go read
Just
a
make
few
sure you
books
don't
about
read
it.
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia is garbage.
Well, it's the Chinese
Read,
propaganda machine.
yeah, yeah, it's all garbage, and it can be changed. People don't even realize that, like, someone could have changed that 5 minutes before you went and read it, and then you could go back 15 minutes later, and it could be something different. Could have been written in there by a different moderator. Like, it's insane. People don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wikipedia is. That's why when people link Wikipedia, sometimes I'm like, did you really
Nope.
just link something that can be changed by anyone that has access to change it at any time? But yeah,
Oh,
it's just one
dude.
of those. I don't know. It's kind of like it's kind of like how when Hitler was going against the communists, right? The Soviet communists, and he's preaching against them after he's already, after he teamed up with the Social Democrats to win in Germany, but then he went against the Social Democrats and
Mhm.
kind of that side. But then he's preaching against the communists while at the same time pushing communist policies. He's just calling
Yep.
them National Socialism, right? It's the same thing. They do this. They do it. The Democrats do this in America. I'm sure they do it all over South America, and you've seen it all
Oh,
over there too.
yep.
They play with the words, they play with the phrases, and because they have this, higher moral standing, because they are some woke leftist or whatever, they feel
Mhm.
like they get a pass on it, and we have to, not only do we have to directly call it out, but we need more big names that are going to actually, like, push back against this. And that's
Yeah.
that's really the hard part too.
And I think I'm going to I'm going to bring something rather, obviously still one of those things that, I mean, it's still, I think it's going to hurt America for a long time when they assassinated Charlie Kirk, right? I mean, one of the reasons they had to go to that level of of violence against him was because they had nothing on him. There
Yep.
was nothing they could use against him to shut him up.
Nope.
And that was the only way they could silence him, by taking him out, and again, I think that's the extreme. But we as conservatives, as Americans that love the American way of life, we have to face the music and accept that our enemies are inside our own country, and we just have to be willing to respond with the same level of violence they are coming at us. I'm not talking about illegal violence, just talking about, we have to be ready to defend ourselves
Yep.
within what the law allows us to, because they are not going to be measured when it comes to try to silence us. And God forbid, I mean, had the Democrats won, I mean, there would be probably I mean, for sure we wouldn't be having this conversation. I mean,
No.
we would have been banned, months
Yeah.
ago,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
censored. So yeah, no, I
Censored
mean,
for
and we have
all
to
the
push
things.
back. And we have to push back, and just be mindful. And again, dude, I don't want to sound like, like a crazy, hardcore, right-wing lunatic. In a way, I consider myself more conservative than to the right, because I also think there are social programs that are necessary to give people a chance, but especially to take care of those that cannot stand up for themselves. Let's say,
Yep.
I think there should, a lot of the money that we waste sending abroad, I think it should be used inside the US to build really good orphanages with, running a combination with church and government and community, in a way, almost like the kibbutzes in Israel, but
Right.
for the American kid, right?
Yeah.
Almost like
Yeah.
in a way, a community-run community center for orphan children. I think that would be a good investment in our own people, because you don't get all these weird things that happen with foster children and all these foster houses that has become, unfortunately, a scam and a way of life for all
Hmm.
these people that are not
Yeah.
necessarily good parents and just
And
accept
they
children
get
because
paid.
they come
Yeah.
with a government check. I
Yep.
think there are ways to fix this problem. Also, a way that I think we should look into fixing our processes for adopting kids. There are people with huge hearts that are willing to do it, that deserve it, that deserve to get to have a child, and it's just a way of you know bringing them back into circles of love when they
Right.
have been abandoned by those that brought them into the world. And
Right.
yeah, and that's kind of again, Dynamo gets involved in a lot of these things, and we get to talk to so many people, and just sometimes we wish, like I was telling Mike the other day, and we got this piece of intel on a group of children. I'm like, dude, I wish we had as an organization more money, because I swear to God, I would start an orphanage tomorrow morning, and I
Yeah.
would just bring best teachers, the best sports instructors, and just build super Americans in a way. Kids that are loved by community, that get a good education, languages and everything, and properly
Yeah.
physically trained and educated with love and everything, so they get a future of their own and they can build, uh, uh, happy homes and families and everything. But
Yeah.
there is only so much we can do. But yeah, it's the real world, and just again, I think we have to bring this to attention, that as much as America is a blessed country, there is an underworld and there is an underbelly that is pretty nasty, and it's right under our nose. Just make sure that we as Americans don't ignore it, because there are children and people suffering right next to our house, and just a couple of blocks away.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I mean, unfortunately, there is the dark part of the world. There's a lot of I
Yeah,
mean, there's a lot of Americans that don't understand that, don't believe it, or don't know that there's bad things. There's bad people that have bad intentions, that want to do bad things to other people. And that's just the reality of the world. And it's
yeah,
not like you said, it's every country. Every country has their bad people and their bad networks that are involved in
yep,
it. And what you guys are doing is amazing. Um, in enabling the communities, helping communities learn
yeah,
what to look for, how to protect themselves better, how to protect their children better. All that's amazing. Those are like dynamic solutions that are things that actually help, and things that are actually going to bring people to a position where they can protect themselves.
yeah,
And again, this is all, again, like the government. Like if you're relying on the government or the police or the whoever to save you, you're already at a loss, right? At that point,
yeah,
like if I was leaving security of my household to the police, who are 15 minutes away at minimum, right? Like,
mhm,
maybe even more than that, on a good day. And unless there just happens to be an officer in the area, which just by whatever happenstance, like you're looking at something that could take seconds, right? Something that could go down within minutes, a couple of minutes. And you're hoping that someone will come save you. That's the wrong answer. And I always tell people
mhm,
that, like enable yourselves to never be a victim. Whatever that entails, you do. Like if you need to go train, whatever you need to train. Like I tell people, I have guns in every room in my house, and they're all locked so that my children can't get to them. But I can get to them, and my wife can get to them. And it's important because you never know what room you're going to be in. And some people are, that's kind of a
mhm,
little bit is a little bit paranoid, a little bit crazy. I'm like, is it though? Because what if I'm doing something and I'm in this certain room and something goes down, and that one in a million time that I would need that right then, and I don't have it, right? It's the same
yep,
concept of why I carry, and I always have a gun on me, or I always am carrying when I'm going anywhere
yep,
that I can, right? Anywhere that I'm allowed to, is because if I ever do need that and I don't have it, then that one singular time could be the one time that was the difference between me living and survive and not living in that situation. And that's enough for me, and it should be enough for everybody else too. I mean, like, why would you put the ability for you to continue breathing on this earth in anyone's hands other than your own? So,
and I think when you have a family, right, with or without children, but especially if you have children, I think you have a moral, spiritual, but also, in a way, social obligation to protect yourself and protect your own. You don't have to be government dependent, even for the basic duty of protecting your life. I
right,
mean, why would I trust the government to do it when sometimes they cannot even protect themselves? And
right,
we've seen it with, unfortunately, with so many, police officers that are either, not properly trained or not in enough good, physical,
right,
in that moment, ability or
yeah,
capability or whatever. It's just, I mean, again, we have an obligation as parents, as heads of households to be able to protect that what we love and those who we love.
yep, absolutely, man. I agree. Well, I want to share everyone. I'm gonna put up y'all's website real quick, just so everyone can
I
see it.
appreciate
It's
it.
Project. I'm gonna put it in the chat on YouTube. I'll put it in.
ProjectDynamo.net.
Yep, .net. I'm gonna put it in there, and I'm gonna put it under on the stream, and then I'll pull it up here so that everyone can kind of see real quick. Second, should have put it up earlier, but there we go. And oh, I forgot to share this. Hold on a second. All right. All right. So for anybody, if you want, this is the website for Project Dynamo that Mario was talking about. You can go in here. Again, request rescue, donate, everything in here. They got all the information that you would need and videos, and then you have questions, anything, everything. So definitely please go give their website a look. I mean, look at all they operate all over the world. They've been doing great things for so many people and helping out. I mean, not just children, but like Americans all over, and just people, disaster areas all over, like just amazing group of individuals that are working, and a lot of the times, on their own time and their own dime to help out other people. So,
So
really
appreciate it, man.
awesome. Yeah, really awesome initiative, and I love it so much. I'm glad that you could come on with me and chat about everything, and I hope
Man.
some
Well,
people learn some
I hope
stuff
you
too.
get to
And
deploy with us sometime soon, man. The next
yeah, man,
mission.
no, I have to talk to the wife and see when I can be like, hey, when are you gonna let me go play for a little while and have some fun?
No, but seriously, to your audience, first off, thank you for listening to us and for listening to my ramblings and everything. I get passionate about what I do and what I believe in. And yeah, if you have it in your heart to help, a fellow American that might find himself or herself in distress, projectdynamo.net, donate. We're a fully registered 501c3. And we also can, if you find, also, the opportunity to donate your time, or even do a corporate donation, we also can extend tax deduction documentation and everything. Again, it's just something that we do and try to be thankful to all the people that partner with us and donate. So projectdynamo.net, we're 100% underfunded. Every single cent goes directly to the next mission, and yeah, just Americans helping Americans.
So awesome, man. Yeah, and thank you so much again, and tell Mike I said what's up, and
He's probably
hopefully
listening, so
yeah, Mike. Hopefully he is, and but hopefully I'll get to do something cool with y'all at some point. Stretch the legs a little bit, get out from behind the
oh
computer
yeah.
screen, maybe do something fun. But
And we'll
yeah,
take you
again,
to
man.
Jamaica we'll take you to Jamaica and rock a couple miles over there.
Yeah, dude. Hey, that sounds great. That sounds great. And honestly, just go stretch the legs a little bit, get some fresh air in a different country.
Yeah,
It never hurt anybody. So,
absolutely, for sure.
all right, yeah, man. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. Thank you for the stories and thank you for everything that you're doing. It
Sure.
really is amazing work, and you and all of the ladies and gentlemen over at Project Dynamo, thank you all guys so much.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, and thank you
Yeah, man.
for listening.
All right, and everybody else, thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, if you haven't, please like and subscribe and share and all the things. And then last thing, go by. I shared his link to his page, Project Dynamo, as well. I'll put him again. I'll put him at the bottom of this stream as well. I'll put the ats for everyone so that you can find Project Dynamo and you can find all the stuff on them. But please go give them a look and a follow and just kind of, help the initiative of what they're doing and help, if at the very least, help highlight, all the great work that they're doing. So thanks everybody for tuning in to Regular Republic, and Mario, thanks. Till next time, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, man.
See you soon.